Dog saves lion cub from drowning. What the lions do next is unbelievable. The cub's frantic yelps echoed in the air as the current swept it away from the shore. The river, swollen from recent rains, was fast and unforgiving, pulling the small animal further into its depths. The lion cub, no older than a few months, had wandered too close to the water's edge, its playful curiosity leading it straight into danger. The sound of splashing reached the ears of a nearby dog, part of a small group traveling along the savannah's edge. The dog, scruffy and weathered from a life spent navigating the wild, had been resting in the shade, keeping an eye on the surroundings. It had heard the cub's cries and saw it flailing against the pull of the water, unable to make its way back to land. Without hesitation, the dog sprinted toward the riverbank, its muscles rippling as it jumped into the water. The cub was caught in the current, its small paws unable to keep pace with the river's speed. As it struggled, the dog reached it, its strong jaws gently grasping the cub's scruff. Despite the cub's weak thrashing, the dog held firm, keeping the lion cub afloat as they moved toward the safety of the shore. The river fought back with every stroke, but the dog's strength outmatched the current. The cub, now exhausted from the struggle, was lifted gently toward the bank. When the dog finally reached the shallows, it carefully released the cub, pulling back with cautious relief. The small lion cub, soaked and trembling, remained still for a few moments, gasping for breath. The dog, breathing heavily, stepped back and watched the cub, its instincts calm but alert. The river, once a force of danger, now stood still behind them. The cub, though exhausted, slowly lifted its head and looked up at the dog, its wide eyes filled with a mixture of confusion and quiet gratitude. For a few moments, nothing moved. The world around them was a silent witness to an unlikely rescue, a bond forming in the quiet aftermath of survival. The cub was safe, but not yet free from the danger it had faced. The dog, though still panting from the exertion, didn't leave. Instead, it stood vigil, its watchful gaze fixed on the cub, now lying quietly on the shore. This moment, brief and without words, marked the beginning of something unexpected. The cub, now slightly steadier, remained still as the dog circled around it. The bond between them was unspoken, a silent understanding that transcended species. The dog had saved the cub, and in doing so, had created a connection between them. One that would stay perhaps for only a brief moment, but one that would resonate in ways neither could fully understand. As the cub's breathing slowed, the dog stepped back, watching quietly from a distance. The savannah stretched out before them, the golden grasses swaying gently in the breeze. Time passed slowly, yet the stillness between the cub and the dog held a profound sense of calm, the quiet aftermath of a heroic rescue that would not be forgotten. The lion cub lay on the shore, its body still trembling, but the frantic panic had subsided. The dog, its breathing now steady, paced back and forth nearby, its eyes never leaving the cub. For a while there was nothing but the sounds of the wind moving through the tall savanna grasses and the occasional distant call of a bird. The dog's movements were slow and deliberate, its posture calm, as if it were waiting for something. A signal from the cub, perhaps, or just the right moment to move forward. The cub remained still, unsure of what to do next. It could feel the weight of the dog's gaze, but it was uncertain about this new presence. The world of the wild had been a constant, filled with the familiar sounds and scents of the savannah. Now everything felt strange. The cub's body ached, the memory of the water's coldness still fresh in its bones, but the warmth from the dog's brief touch lingered. It was an odd comfort, and it made the cub feel both safe and vulnerable at the same time. The dog, sensing the cub's hesitation, sat at a distance, its posture non-threatening, but its gaze still intense. The cub slowly raised its head, its eyes scanning the creature that had saved it. For a moment, their gazes locked. The cub's eyes, wide and unsure, met the dog's calm, steady stare. Neither of them moved. There was no growl from the dog, no show of dominance, only a quiet, mutual understanding between them. The cub, still fragile and vulnerable, began to inch closer, its body trembling with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The dog did not retreat, instead sitting still, its body relaxed. From the tall grass nearby, unseen but perceptive, the cub's mother watched quietly. Her eyes flicked from the dog to her cub, then back again, The lioness, known for her strength and fierceness, knew that her cub had been through something. She could sense that the cub was not yet fully healed, physically or emotionally, but there was a subtle shift in the air, a softening in the tension that had once defined the savannah. The lioness, though cautious, did not immediately move to intervene. She understood the bond that was beginning to form between her cub and the dog. It was not an act of submission, nor was it a sign of weakness. It was a quiet moment of trust, an acknowledgement that help had come when it was needed most. The dog, though a stranger to this land, had offered its presence when the cub was at its most vulnerable. The cub's breathing, once shallow and frantic, deepened as it inched closer to the dog. It stopped just short of touching, but the distance between them had closed. The dog's ears flicked forward, sensing the cub's quiet decision. There was no rush, no force, just the soft, steady progression of trust. The lioness, watching from the shadows, took a slow step forward. Her body, tense but measured, moved closer to the cub, yet she still held her distance from the dog. She seemed to recognize the gesture in the cub's movements, and though she was still wary, she did not stop it. Her quiet acceptance of the situation, however small, was a testament to the changing tides of the savannah, where even the fiercest creatures could find themselves softened by the unlikeliest of bonds. The dog remained motionless, its gaze never faltering, and as the sun dipped lower, casting a soft orange light over the scene, the bond between the cub and the dog deepened in silence. The savannah, once filled with danger and survival, had given way to something softer, a moment of shared vulnerability and understanding. Neither of them spoke, but in the quiet exchange, both had begun to heal, not just from the pain of the past, but from the isolation they had once known. As the sun began to set, the lioness moved closer, watching the dog with measured steps. Her gaze was focused, but there was no aggression. She approached cautiously, her muscles rippling beneath her golden fur, as if silently acknowledging the dog's presence and the bond that had formed with her cub. The dog, still and calm, did not retreat. It stayed in its place, watching the lioness with steady eyes. The air was thick with the weight of their silent exchange. The cub, now standing next to its mother, looked up at her, sensing the shift. It too took a small step forward, closer to the dog, its trust in the animal growing. The lioness, standing just within reach, locked eyes with the dog, and for a long moment, there was an unspoken understanding between them. It wasn't friendship, but something deeper, a respect, a quiet acknowledgement that they were no longer strangers. The dog, though a foreign presence in this land, had earned its place. The savannah, once a place of harsh survival, had softened. The lioness and her cub, after a brief pause, turned and walked away, the dog watching them go. The bond formed through the cub's rescue had changed the rhythm of the wild, leaving behind a fleeting but profound connection. As they disappeared into the tall grasses, the lioness glanced back one final time, and in that brief moment, there was understanding between the two creatures, the lioness and the dog, forged not by words, but by the quiet gift of survival and trust.